Authority. Today, the authority is conducting a public hearing pursuant to Section 15A of its Enabling Act on its proposed 2021 winter, spring, summer, and fall operating schedules. I would like to inform everyone that the authority's communications director, Sean Driscoll, and Steve Beatty of All Media Productions are making audio and video recordings of today's hearing. I also would like to note that I believe that at least 4 of the authority's governing board members are attending the hearing today via Zoom. Chairman James Malkin of Martha's Vineyard, Vice Chairman Catherine Wilson of Falmouth, Robert Ranney of Nantucket, and Robert Jones of Barnstable. This is a hearing being conducted by the authority today and not a board meeting. Therefore, while these board members are in attendance, they will not be deliberating on the proposed schedule changes today or otherwise responding to any testimony at this time. They are here to listen, as are we. I now would like to introduce some of the members of the authority's management staff who are also here today and whose responsibilities include our reservations and terminal operations. General Manager Robert Davis and Director of Shoreside Operations Allison Fletcher. Communications Director Sean Driscoll is also here and hosting the hearing. The Authorities Enabling Act requires the authority to post and advertise in newspapers with general circulation in Falmouth, Barnstable, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and New Bedford, all of its proposed schedule changes at least 60 days prior to their effective date. Accordingly, this past April, the authority placed newspaper advertisements of its proposed 2021 operating schedules for the period from January 4th, 2021 to January 4th, 2022. The Authorities Enabling Act also provides that if the authority receives a petition within 30 days of those advertisements that is signed by not less than 50 persons who are residents of any of those communities, requesting a public hearing, the authority shall conduct a public hearing within 14 days of receiving the petition. On May 29th, the authority received a petition with respect to its proposed schedules that was signed by 58 residents of the town of Falmouth, and that is why we are holding this hearing today. The purpose of today's public hearing is to receive testimony regarding the authority's proposed schedule changes to ensure that we gain the benefit of the views of the parties affected. The authority will also consider written testimony that is submitted regarding the proposed schedule changes, but we ask that written testimony be submitted as soon as possible after today's hearing to ensure that we can consider it. In their petition, the 58 Falmouth residents object to the authority's scheduling of its 5:30 a.m. freight trip from Woods Hole before the authority's long-range vineyard transportation task force has begun to function. And they request that the authority postpone approval of a 5:30 a.m. freight trip from Woods Hole until a future date when the long-range vineyard transportation task force is functioning. As in the past, the petitioners object to large trucks traveling to that 5:30 a.m. ferry because they wake up Falmouth residents beginning at 4:45 in the morning and earlier. The petitioners do not object to cars traveling on that ferry. As mentioned in the petition, on October 15th, 2019, the authorities board unanimously voted to establish the Long-Range Vineyard Transportation Task Force to work together with the Martha's Vineyard Commission, the towns of Falmouth, Oak Bluffs, and Tisbury, and the city of New Bedford, and with public input to attempt to identify reasonable steps that can be taken to address issues and concerns about freight and other traffic in each of those communities on a long-term basis. The authority promptly sent invitations to all of those communities, asking them to participate in this endeavor and to designate their representatives on the task force. Also, on January 21st of this year, the authorities board unanimously voted to include representatives of the Dukes County Commissioners on the task force as well. The authority's general manager, Bob Davis, designated himself and me to be the authority's 2 representatives on the task force. And on December 16th, the Falmouth Selectmen appointed Falmouth Selectman Doug Brown and a town employee to be determined by Falmouth Town Manager Julian Suso to be their 2 representatives on the task force. Because the goal of the task force is to address long-term transportation issues in all of the affected communities, the participation of representatives from Martha's Vineyard is necessary to identify reasonable steps that can be taken to address those issues with the input, support, and involvement of the Martha's Vineyard community. Accordingly, the authority has waited to convene a meeting of the task force until the Martha's Vineyard Commission, the Dukes County Commissioners, and the towns of Oak Bluffs and Tisbury appoint their representatives to the task force. On January 29th, Bob Davis and I attended a meeting of the Tisbury Selectmen to discuss the purpose of the task force and to answer any questions they might have. That night, the Selectmen decided to seek volunteers to serve as Tisbury's representatives on the task force and then advertise the availability of these positions on the town's website, asking Tisbury residents to submit their letters of interest by March 23rd. Similarly, on February 25th, Bob Davis and I attended a meeting of the Oak Bluff Selectmen to discuss the subject, and they too agreed to appoint 2 representatives to the task force. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, Governor Baker declared a state of emergency due to the coronavirus pandemic, and everyone's efforts temporarily turned away from long-range transportation planning to short-term survival. I think it's fair to say that since then, all of the community's energies have been devoted to ensuring the health and safety of their residents. Similarly, the authority has been confronted with an unexpected challenge to remain financially afloat amid a precipitous drop in traffic levels, while at the same time developing and implementing new operational measures to address the dangerous health risks posed by the virus. But now that we are all slowly coming to terms with the new normal, the authority anticipates that the task force will soon be functioning at Zoom speed. For example, we understand that the town of Tisbury will begin its annual appointment process after they have their town meeting this coming Saturday, weather permitting, and that the subject of the task force also has been asked to be placed on the agenda of the next meeting of the Oak Bluff Selectmen. Accordingly, we are encouraged that these towns, as well as the Martha's Vineyard Commission and the Dukes County Commissioners, will be able to appoint their task force representatives shortly so that the first meeting of the task force can be held as soon as possible. Meanwhile, for 2021, the authority is proposing to once again operate the 5:30 a.m. freight trip from Woods Hole only during its summer operating schedules, with a motor vessel governor from May 19th through October 18th. The proposed summer operating schedules essentially would be the same summer schedule we ran in 2018 and in 2019, as well as the same summer schedules that were approved for this year before our schedules were modified due to the emergency created by the coronavirus pandemic. The authority is also proposing to continue to limit the size of the trucks that the authority carries on its 5:30 a.m. freight trip from Woods Hole to trucks that are less than 40 feet in length, which it began doing in 2018, so that less noise is generated by the trucks that drive to the authority's Woods Hole terminal in the early morning hours. As I previously mentioned, the staff will consider all the oral and written testimony it receives regarding these proposed schedules. We will then prepare a draft report recommending either that the authority maintain those schedules as originally proposed or that it make modifications to those proposed schedules. Also in the draft report, we will explain the reasons for our recommendations, summarize the oral testimony received, and attach all of the written testimony received. When it is prepared, the draft report will be forwarded to the authority's board and port council members, and then posted on the authority's website. We will also email people to let them know of the availability of the draft report on our website if they have provided us with their email addresses through the written testimony, or if they email us later asking to be notified. Those of you who would like to be notified of the availability of the draft report should email your requests to schedules@steamshipauthority.com. We expect that the draft report will be available in time so that it can be considered by both the Port Council and the board at the regularly scheduled monthly meetings in July. Unless there are public officials here today who would like to testify first, we will now call on members of the public who have joined the Zoom hearing who indicate that they want to give testimony. We have been informed by Mr. Trumbull, who submitted the petition on behalf of the 58 Falmouth residents, that he would like to testify later in the hearing after others have been given their chance to speak. For those of you who want to give testimony who have joined this hearing via the internet, please raise your hands by clicking on the raise my hand icon that appears on your screens. For those of you who have joined this hearing by telephone, you can raise your hands by pressing *9. I want to note that this hearing is not an adjudicatory proceeding. Therefore, we will not be asking people to testify under oath, nor will we restrict people's comments to testimony that conforms to the rules of evidence observed by the courts. Finally, I would just ask those who testify to keep in mind that we would like everyone who wants to give testimony today have a fair opportunity to testify. If there is time after we receive everyone's testimony, we will try to give people an opportunity to testify a second time for the purpose of responding to comments made after they gave their initial testimony. But in the event we don't have time for those responses, we encourage all of you to submit written testimony as soon as possible after this hearing. So at this point, I would like to ask if there are any public officials here today who would like to testify first. If so, please indicate by clicking the raise my hand icon on your Zoom screen or by pressing *9 on your phone. Thank you, and I will leave it to Sean to determine if there are any public officials who have clicked the raise my hand.
All right, the first one on the list is a phone number, so I'm not sure if this is a public official or not, but we will start there.
We will start there, we'll take their word.
Okay.
And if I could ask you to identify yourself and possibly also spell your name for us. We are talking to 787-721-0778.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Damien, D-A-M-I-E-N Kuffler, K-U-F-F-L-E-R, 49 Gosnold Road, Woods Hole. I'm calling because of my concerns about long-standing concerns. I'd like to say recently in the context, as you just mentioned, of the current economic crisis in the U.S. Initiated by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Steamship Authority stated that part of its current financial problems were the result of its own Enabling Act. This implies that the Steamship Authority would like to modify its Enabling Act to eliminate some of these problems. Such a call to change in the Enabling Act is consistent with the call from many public voices over the past many years for changes in the Enabling Act. And that it would be important to modify the Enabling Act to make a way for to improve how the Steamship Authority operates. Therefore, it appears that for the first time in decades, the public and the Steamship Authority are in agreement on at least one thing, that a change is required to the Steamship Authority Enabling Act. Since we all agree that change is necessary, I hereby request that the Steamship Authority agree to and call for the rewriting of the Enabling Act. The Steamship Authority is in the best position and best suited for making such a call. I also request that this be done now and not later. I also propose that the revised Enabling Act carry a clear definition of what it means for the Steamship Authority to be a lifeline operation to the islands, and include a requirement that it act responsibly towards all those affected by Steamship Authority operations, and not just its clients and not just itself, but also the local communities on which its operations have had so often a serious negative impact. I also say that the Steamship Authority must be allowed to not be allowed to continue operating as a monopoly. The Steamship Authority also requires an oversight board that is not beholden to the Steamship Authority, but has direct and actionable purview over all aspects of the Steamship Authority operations and planning. The Steamship Authority must also be required to act with transparency, not its typical form of pretended transparency. Finally, I want to state that the Steamship Authority must no longer be able to hold the local townships hostage to its financial problems. Thank you so much for holding the hearing. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Kuffler. And for those of you who are yet out there, we are trying first to take testimony from public officials and try to, and this hearing is about our proposed schedule changes for 2021. I appreciate Mr. Kuffler's statements and we will note them, but the focus of today's hearing is primarily on the proposed schedule changes, and we are asking to take public officials' testimony first. Sean, is there someone who has raised, only those public officials who would like to speak first, please raise their hands. And Sean, if there are any more, if we could go to them as well.
Yeah, Christine Todd, I'm bringing you over if you want to start your video and unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. So my name is Christine Todd. I serve as a county commissioner on the island of Martha's Vineyard. And changing the 5:30 boat to New Bedford raises critical concerns to our island. It really changes the whole dynamic of how we've been doing business out here. And not only will it be an increase in the cost of freight coming over here, but the time involved with this will be considerably longer with the transport. And all of these additional costs are going to be passed on to the island that already gets a hit from having to have goods and services delivered on the steamship. So I'm speaking for myself as a county commissioner. We have not taken a full vote on this. I believe there are other county commissioners on the call that can speak for themselves as well. I also feel that if we do allow a 5:30 boat to come from New Bedford, that's going to open up the door for a lot more boats coming from New Bedford, which I oppose. I think that we can manage it from Woods Hole at a rate that is effective and cost effective to the island. So I, as a county commissioner, am not in favor of switching the service from Woods Hole to New Bedford. I am sympathetic to the position of the community of Woods Hole. But seeing, and I don't know what number, we're up to 62 participants now, I see, who are on this call, many of whom I think, or some of whom aren't from Woods Hole, are trying to determine how 17,000 plus islanders are affected by this. And so that concerns me very much. Just stating my position as a county commissioner, not representing the full board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Todd. Thank you very much for those comments. Sean, are there any other attendees who have raised their hand indicating that they're public officials who would like to testify?
One second, Keith Chatnower, I'll bring him over in just 1 second.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can
Thank
you hear
you.
us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm actually at work. This is why my video was off, but I'll keep it on. So like Christine, I also serve as a county commissioner for Dukes County, which is, of course, mostly Martha's Vineyard. Like Christine, I am not speaking for the entire board, but I want to reiterate everything that Christine said. The 5:30 boat must continue to operate, and it must continue to operate from Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard. We have heard as commissioners from countless local vendors who provide goods and services that the 5:30 freight boat is critical to goods and trucks getting on the island, not only on the island, but then off of the island in a timely manner, so they're not causing congestion when during an hour where more people are out and about. And again, like Christine, I sympathize with the folks in Woods Hole, and I really understand that you may not think this is an ideal scenario. But like I said, the 5:30 boat is not only critical from Woods Hole to the Vineyard, it's critical from the Vineyard to Woods Hole. I hear about that as well. But again, from vendors who sell products, who need those products early in the morning, the 5:30 ferry needs to be there, and it needs to be from Woods Hole. It would just be, it's too expensive and just not at all efficient to move that to New Bedford, let alone the cost to the steamship of making New Bedford a viable alternative. And again, just like Christine said, I'm not speaking for the entire county commission. It's just, this is my personal opinion. But thank you for convening the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Shatnover. Sean, are there any other public officials?
Yeah, Tristan Israel, I'll bring him over.
Good afternoon, Tristan. Are you able to speak?
You need to unmute yourself, Tristan.
Tristan, we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Can.
So I've been working, I apologize, I got to the meeting late, but I just wanted to support my two fellow county commissioners and what they said, concerning the boat, the freight boat. And again, I too sympathize with the people in Woods Hole, but this is so vital for us and important. So I just wanted to back up what my two fellow county commissioners have said, and also to say it's nice to see all you guys.
Same here. Thank you. All right. Okay, thank you, Tristan.
And I've got Leon Brathwaite coming over.
Okay.
Oops.
Leon, have you unmuted yourself?
Yeah, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
We can't see you either anymore. Leon, if you don't mind, we'll try you later on in the hearing. Oh, there you are.
Well, there's this. You're getting.
You,
Oh, there you are, Leon.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something's happening with my my unit here,
Okay.
and I'm having difficulty finding you guys.
All right.
Am I there?
We're here. We see you.
I
Here's
can
a photo of you.
Okay, something's happened with my camera, went off on the thing. But again, I would just like to reiterate what's already been said by my fellow county commissioners, that the 530 boat bringing product to the island for the stocking of the shelves and in a timely manner. And also, I think that the issue of, are we talking 20 trucks coming or 10? It's not a lot of traffic that's coming that we're talking about. So I would sincerely hope that you would continue with the 5:30 a.m. boat.
All right. Thank you, Leon.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised. Do you, Sean?
I doubt, Melinda Loberg,
Linda did.
just county official or public officials still. Let me bring Melinda over.
Yeah, that's what we started with. So
Oh, no, hang on. Melinda, hang on. I'll bring you right back. I clicked too vehemently here.
and after Melinda, I think we'll go out of order because I see that Jonathan Goldman has his hand raised, and I think it's fair, since we've had all vineyard people by chance so far, that we should just have a different perspective after Melinda.
Melinda, you there?
Yes, are you there?
Yeah.
We are here and we hear you.
Okay, you don't see me, you just hear me, right?
Correct.
Correct.
You've been spared. I am the Board of Selectmen Chair for the town of Tisbury, and I know there have been hearings like this on the 530 vote in the past, and the Board of Selectmen in Tisbury have weighed in the past with both written and oral testimony. It's not unlike what you've been hearing from the county commissioners, that there is crucial goods and services delivered at that time of day. I live near the port and can hear, like probably the people in Woods Hole, the backup beeps of trucks loading and unloading. I know that we've all chosen the place where we live, and there are some impacts from that decision, and I know that some of them are negative, both for us and for you in Falmouth and Woods Hole. I also just want to remind people that if you live on the mainland, your roads operate 24/7. If you live on the island, your roads are limited to a certain number of hours of the day, and travel cannot happen before 5:30 or after 9:45 when the Steamship Authority has its regular schedule. So we have to pack a lot into a shorter period of time, and I am just in favor of keeping that boat for the businesses and people of Martha's Vineyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. All right, Sean, if you'll give me the discretion to go with Jonathan Goldman. Jonathan, are you there? Jonathan, I see you now. Have you unmuted yourself? We cannot hear you. Yes, here we are.
Hi, Steve.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
You're,
Let me just clarify. This is specific to 5:30 a.m. boat only?
it's about the schedules.
Okay. Well, regarding the scheduling, it's nice to hear from commissioners. I think that what Damien had to say, first off, as a Woods Holer, is a very positive and an incredibly important demand. I think that there's all the long-term argument of either Lifeline or the justification for very early morning disturbance for the village never seems to sort of pan out in my mind. What are the products that are being brought it is a necessity that has to happen within those 4 hours? I'd really like to know what those are. If they're medical products and there's a time sensitivity for them, I totally get it. But if they're not life-saving devices, I have to say, yes, the last commissioner, I think it was the commissioner, the woman who just spoke, said we've all made choices about where we live. And that's true. You live on the vineyard. Maybe there is something to change. But we need to come to some kind of agreement because this is not tenable anymore. And we have done this for decades. We've had this conversation for a long time. And we need to meet somewhere. Now, if the current tenor in the world is about change, there is a really important opportunity not to be missed here. And there's no give. I have not heard any give and take. It's Woods Hole will take it. That's what it is. They live on the mainland. They have 24/7 access to roads. And we don't. And therefore, meaning the vineyard doesn't. So therefore, we just have to eat it. And I think whether it is the size and expenditure of the costs to build new buildings, the turning to each of the different ports for recompense in times when you're not living large and you don't have the cash and it becomes burdensome for all the communities. Now, you didn't cause COVID, and I get that, but where is the oversight? Where is the group that is trying to look over what you do? Because from the Woods Hole perspective, for countless years, this is falling on deaf ears. Countless years falling on deaf ears. It's a good lyric there. I just don't get that. It seems to me to be a disconnect. There was an article written, I think it was in the Enterprise recently, that talked about how sacrifices are made and how we all make sacrifices to do whatever it is we find to be critical. But the bottom line right now is that we have the opportunity to make this a win-win for everybody. And the reason that we've always maintain the concept of New Bedford, is a slow boat, a less costly way because it's slower, and it's about planning. If there are, PPE, just as an example, that need to be brought to Martha's Vineyard Hospital, and they need them immediately, and a supplier has delivered them somewhere on the mainland, then of course that is something that needs to be prioritized. These are planning issues, and I do not get the inability, other than in these informal or formal, depending on how you look at it, conversations as to how we're going to come to some kind of parity. I don't see it. I think that's what Damien was saying originally. And, is it all got to be Woods Hole, take it or leave it? That's what it is? Because there is only one carrier to get it to Vineyard Haven or Oak Bluffs? That makes no sense to me at all. Why should, as it says in the Enabling Act, it is for the commonwealth of all of the surrounding communities? Exactly how is that even? Is it 35%? I think
10% for
okay. Is our right? Is our 10% meaning that we really have 10% of value in the long run compared to the vineyards, which is 35, right? Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'm not disputing the ratios. What I'm disputing is how we make a common wealth possible so that both Woods Hole doesn't suffer and Vineyard Haven doesn't suffer. Or if we were to do it, New Bedford doesn't suffer. So all the rest of it seems to me to be noise. And until we understand how and what is being transferred, it makes no sense to me that this is not something that can't be figured out in a logistics, because trucking is logistics, planning solution. And I don't hear that. And that's very critical, I think. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and that is the purpose of this task force that we created last fall. We hope to get started with that as soon as we can, and to have these types of discussions with all of the communities talking with each other in context other than the Section 15A hearing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. All right, I see a John Woodwell.
Okay, bring him over.
John, are you there? We do not hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, very good. Great. I can see myself. Very good. Let's see. First, I would like to note the select woman from Tisbury's comments. If you live on the island, travel is limited to certain times of day, and we all choose the place that we live. Yes, that is true. And I would point out that you are choosing to live on an island, and if you live on that island, travel is limited to certain times of day. I would also call attention to the Dukes County Commissioner's comments and the select woman from Tisbury's comments, notably that this service at 5:30 in the morning is crucial, that it is vital, that we must have it. It is essential, okay? My goodness, no, it is, of course, none of those. All of that is patently absurd. Prior to 2012, we didn't have this 5:30 boat, and the people on the vineyard got along just fine. There is no crisis without a 5:30 boat. Okay, waking up one's neighbor at 4:45 in the morning is inconsiderate. Waking up one's neighbor at 4:45 in the morning repeatedly is rude, and defending one's right to do so as somehow vital, must, essential, crucial. Oh my goodness, no, that's absurd, and it's offensive to hear that. Okay, there's a 5-mile stretch of road between Falmouth at the 4-lane highway and the Woods Hole terminal, the dead end road. This is a 2-lane road with residential areas all the way along that road, 5 miles. 4:45 in the morning, the trucks start to roll down there. Oh, but we understand from a Dukes County commissioner, there's not a lot of traffic, just a few big, loud trucks rolling down at 4:45 every morning. How would you feel if there were trucks rolling past your house at 4:45 every morning? Unbelievable and unnecessary. No, it is less expensive to run freight out of New Bedford if you slow it down. You slow down the vessel a little bit, you put it on a barge, you ship it slowly overnight. It arrives first thing in the morning from New Bedford. You can do that fine. Now, back to the Steamship Authority and its errors. Okay, first, Craig Johnson ran a freight ship from New Bedford, or a barge anyway, from New Bedford in 2000 and 2001. This was mismanaged by the Steamship Authority. They lost money running it under the Steamship Authority. Mr. Johnson wanted to continue the service because he knew that he could run it for profit, make money, okay? He could do it as a functioning business. The Steamship Authority would not allow him to do that. It set obstacles, it set conditions that prohibited him from doing that. That is what the Steamship Authority done. And since then, we have had no freight service from New Bedford and no action, any meaningful action on freight service from New Bedford. It's time for the Steamship Authority to pop it in gear and get that going. This is part of a larger issue of well, I'm going to paraphrase what the commissioner, member Steamship Authority representative from Hyannis, Barnstable County said, objected to the languages that the Steamship Authority doesn't listen and doesn't care. I'd point out that in 1997, the people of the Vineyard overwhelmingly supported in a referendum limits on Steamship Authority traffic that would limits that would be set at levels that existed in 1997. In roughly the 2.5 decades since then, the Steamship Authority has more than doubled the number of vehicles that it pumps onto Martha's Vineyard. As a result of that, the Vineyard is jam-packed with cars, and the effectiveness of the transportation system on the Vineyard is going down, okay? You used to be able to hop on a bus on the Vineyard and go to any town for $1 a town. It was quick, efficient, clean, pleasant transportation. And now the Vineyard is jam-packed with cars brought on and pumped onto the island by the Steamship Authority. Not only is the Steamship Authority destroying the transportation system by creating jams all over Martha's Vineyard at all the intersections, jammed up all summer long. Not only is the Steamship Authority doing that, but it is advertising itself so that it will do more of that. This is counterproductive. It is not what the people of Vineyard want. It's not what the people of Woods Hole want. We have vigorously and repeatedly and persistently opposed this gluttony that has led to this obesity in the Steamship Authority, for which the Steamship Authority now wants our money, our taxpayer money, to bail itself out, okay? And so it's time for the Steamship Authority to move forward by reducing the number of cars it ships to the Vineyard, and by moving the 530 freight boat that it started only in 2012, which is not essential, not vital, not crucial, not a must, to a more appropriate time, to a time that's considerate of the neighbors here in Falmouth and Woods Hole. If we can't do that, then we will have to rework the Steamship Authority. We will have to find some sort of legislative solution to this problem outside of the Steamship Authority Board, okay? You have to do better than this. It's basic courtesy toward the people of Woods Hole and Falmouth, and it's basic functionality for the people of Martha's Vineyard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woodwell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, shall we just go in the order that John Gore, I think, is next? Mr. Gore, we cannot yet hear you. We'll let you know when we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize. I missed the start of the meeting. And also, I can't really speak to the need for specific schedules. But I own the house opposite the Treetops Motel, which is just past the turnoff to Church Street on Woods Hole Road. We are unable to use our front bedroom because of the noise of trucks. And whatever you decide in terms of the scheduling, somebody, and I think the Steamship Authority should take the lead on this, should be working with the relevant police and other authorities to enforce traffic calming, because that is possible. The last mile or two into the village, trucks should not be racing down there to meet a deadline. And similarly, when they come out of the port, when they turn right up onto Woods Hole Road, having just got off the boat, they cannot wait. They accelerate through their gears as fast as they can going up that incline. The noise by the time you get to my house is very loud, it's very dangerous, it's very threatening. There are people on those sidewalks as well as in their houses. And it's just amazing to me that there's not been an accident with some fatalities, because the drivers are reckless. Something needs to be done, whether it's signage, whether it's speed traps, whether the police can get engaged, but traffic calming is something you really need to consider before you start adding more to the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. As a point of information, at the same time that the Steamship Authority created this task force, they also created a working group in order to try to mitigate traffic and noise issues in Woods Hole from the terminal operations. And the Falmouth members who were appointed to that group, Falmouth Selectman Doug Jones and Nat Trumbull and Allison Fletcher and I have been meeting even before the Vineyard members have been appointed, because those are primarily Falmouth issues. And we have met once with Falmouth Police Chief Dunn, and have talked about the need for more speed enforcement on Woods Hole Road. And I believe at some point there will be some speed limit signs going up on the road to see what people's speeds are. And there will be some attempts to have greater speed limit enforcement on that road. We're looking at a number of other issues to address that, possibly after we get that information, then approaching the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to see about even lowering the speed limit as you go into Woods Hole Village more than it is now. But those are issues we're trying to address that have also been delayed somewhat because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Let me just make a minor point. Speed is obviously the main driver of the noise, but I'm pretty sure there are trucks that can be noisy without going fast, and I think that's another aspect that needs to be looked at.
Yes, and there are certain trucks that do that and certain trucks that don't. What we have created, and this might be an opportunity to say it, we have created a new dedicated email address for the Steamship Authority, whtraffic@steamshipauthority.com. And if there is an instance of excessive noise of a truck, perhaps using its Jake brakes or something along that line, we would encourage you and others to immediately email the Steamship Authority. We've ascertained that those emails go directly to the cell phones of Allison Fletcher and the Woods Hole Terminal Manager, Rob Towns. And if we get real-time information on really egregious examples of people abusing their Jake brakes or other things, hopefully we can be able to identify those people at real time at the terminal, know who they are, and address those issues. And in our latest letter to the freight shippers, our regular freight shippers, we have let them know that if there are any trucks that are singled out as generating excessive noise on Woods Hole Road, that they will not be allowed to make early morning reservations in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephen Laster. And when I can hear you, I will let you know. I still don't hear you.
Hello.
There you are. I hear you now. Hello, sir.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the time at this hearing. I'd like to make just a few points. Number one, this is my first hearing. Clearly, it would have been better to do it in person, but I appreciate the ability to do it over Zoom. I might add, as a newcomer to this hearing, while I think it's eminently appropriate that public officials speak first, I think it is inappropriate when public officials are given a first voice when speaking only for themselves. I think it makes it very intimidating and difficult as a citizen to address this body. And I would ask you to reconsider allowing public officials first time when in fact they claim and state that they are speaking only for themselves. And at that point, they're not a public official. But let me get to the main point of the hearing, which is about the 5:30 schedule. In listening to those public officials, it's interesting to note that the arguments made were made solely on the basis of opinion, presented without evidence or facts. I believe opinions matter, but facts speak more. It is a fact that those of us that live on the Woods Hole Road, of which I've owned a house on that for 26 years, have been greatly disturbed in the morning as a result of the schedule change. It is a fact that the people of Martha's Vineyard for decades did not have a 5:30 ferry run. It is also a fact that the groups have not worked together to look at other logistical solutions that would allow, as Jonathan pointed out, for a win-win. And I think it's a shame that the steamship continues to push forward in this manner without looking for ways that allow the two sides of Vineyard Sound to come together. Your leadership is divisive. Your solutions are divisive. And in fact, if I wanted to be divisive, I could rebut one of the officials from the vineyard by saying, if it is in fact only 20 trucks, then that supply chain impact cannot be large. It is a fact that those 20 trucks could go later in the day, filling warehouses and allowing businesses to be ready to go in the morning. But I don't want to get into that game of reductionist thinking. I encourage you as leaders, as momentary stewards of the steamship, who will be judged by history, to find an outcome that allows both sides to prosper. I believe it's a reductionist point of view to decide at the onset of the hearing that one side will lose and one side will win. There are options, there are solutions, and I believe that people willing to take their experience and their intellect that you all have and reapply it to finding outcomes that allow us to sleep, heck, till 5:30 or 6 in the morning, I believe you can do that. And I believe commerce on the vineyard can still go on in a way that works for the people that live on the vineyard. So in closing, I would just like to say, perhaps you guys need to restart your approach. Perhaps you need to look at your built-in biases by greeting public officials from the vineyard as friends in a public hearing, by allowing them to speak first and most when in fact they're only speaking for themselves, and by starting a hearing that has a tone that to me smacks of a foregone conclusion. Please don't do that. For the good of all of us, please step back and please work on a solution that allows us to just simply get a good night's sleep. I appreciate your time. I hope you have the courage to hear my words, and I thank you for the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lester. VK, whoever that is. I think. VK, could you, we do not hear you yet. We see you now. We still do not hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
There.
There you are.
Hello, everybody. This is exciting. The first time I've communicated on on Zoom.
Oh, you're doing pretty well, except we don't know your name yet.
Yes, that's somebody put VK on got the computer started. My name is Eugenie Kufler.
Oh yes, glad to see you
Yes,
again.
I'm Damien's sister and Suzanne's sister too. I live in Woods Hole. So I have a little speech here I'm going to read so I get the words right. Last August, we attended a hearing at the Falmouth High School to protest the number of early morning trucks. This year we are meeting to protest the same thing. So given this fact that the situation has not improved, I will also repeat myself. The quality of village life depends on the proportions between architecture, circulation, and public spaces. When they are well balanced, they create a social ecosystem. However, in order to facilitate truck traffic beginning at 5:30 in the morning, the SSA has built a third slip with a 90-foot ramp extending into the harbor, everyone's harbor, and has taken out part of the sidewalk on Luscombe Avenue to allow the ramp to fan out, paving over public space where there used to be a picnic table and bike racks. This industrial operation has wiped out the charm of that epicenter where local and international travelers intersect. And now, since the Steamship Authority's colossal investments have turned into debt, the port towns may have to pay for the destruction of the quality that is being inflicted upon them. I urge the Steamship Authority to reduce ferry trips, beginning with its 5:30 a.m. in the summer trip, and to conduct a traffic study to determine entrance, exit, and circulation in the parking lot. And I urge the town of Falmouth to restore the curbs on Luscombe Avenue and return to the village its precious collective space in order to preserve the fabric of this small town, which is suffering and losing a quality which we all wish to preserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cutler. All right, Sean, I don't see, yes, goodbye. I don't see any other raised hands.
I don't either.
Oh, someone came up. Phil Richardson, I think, I assume. Phil, we don't hear you, we don't see you. Other than that, there you are.
I don't hear you. We don't hear you, Phil.
We don't hear you yet. You have to unmute.
Here we go.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, there.
Oh, we lost him.
Nope. We lost you again. You started for a second.
Okay, how's that?
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. My name's Phil Richardson. I live in Woods Hole. And I look out my window and every day I see Mr. Packer's barges and tugs going by. And they're bringing all kinds of freight to the vineyard and taking things back. Recently, I've noticed a lot of trucks going back and forth. Noonan fuel trucks, huge trucks carrying stuff to the vineyard and back. And I keep asking myself, well, why doesn't Packer put the 530 trucks on his barge and take it to the vineyard? And we could solve the problem right there. Now, have you guys thought about this? Because I watch these barges go back and forth. They're taking trucks, they're taking freight, they're taking fuel. Isn't a good solution to have Mr. Packer's guys bring them to the vineyard and then bring the trucks back? And so we in Woods Hole don't have to listen to the 530 trucks. Simple question for you guys, but it seems like an obvious solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I think I see Becky Connors. And when I hear you, Becky, I will let you know, but I don't hear you yet. I see you. And have you unmuted yourself?
No.
No, you have not. We cannot hear you.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right. Hello. Thank you for having me. I have the pleasure of running the Sands of Time Motel along Woods Hole Road right before Steamship. I also have the pleasure of living across the street from that at the corner of Church Street and Woods Hole Road. And I'm going to add my voices to the other people that live on Woods Hole Road in regard to the trucking traffic that comes through. I walk across this street on a very regular basis to get to work, take my dogs out, and I have been, the people, the trucks that come down through trying to make the boat, or as wild animals coming off the boat, I have had very many close calls. The other thing that I would like to mention is the downshifting. I don't know if the person that lives a little bit further down the road mentioned this, but when trucks are coming into Woods Hole, they're driving very fast. By the time they get to the bend at Church Street, they're downshifting, and it's this horrible, loud, jarring. Again, I can't use the front bedrooms in my house because of the amazing amount of volume from this downshifting as people come into the village. So I just am another voice. The 4:30, 5 o'clock traffic is very painful for people who live on Woods Hole Road. And I just wanted to add my voice as an addition to my guests that stay. I have 20 guests that face the road and have heard multiple times about the truck traffic specifically. So.
Thank you. And again, I think that is what I believe his name was Mr. Gore, who lives on Treetops, mentioned as well. He did mention about that's the Jake braking, is whatever.
Right.
And that's one of the things that this working group is trying to address somehow. It's
Yep. And I would be happy to be on a working group if you would want somebody else. I also would volunteer my driveway, whether it's the Sands of Time or across the road at 540 Woods Hole Road, for police traps or any kind of abatement. I would give up my driveway if you would for that. Right. So
we are planning when our financial situation mellows to put in decibel readers along Woods Hole Road to see what the decibel readings are. We've talked about that, but again, it's been a little bit affected by the circumstances.
Well, I wish you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I see a telephone number with a hand up. 802-292-2395.
Hi, my name is Donna Hammers. I live at 326 Woods Hole Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for having this hearing. I'm very, very concerned about the increased traffic. I moved from Vermont, where I lived at an intersection with a freight train crossing, and I sold my house at a loss because the freight trains are carrying toxic, highly flammable gas and fuel and all kinds of chemicals, and so are these trucks flying down Woods Hole Road. And you say there's only 10 to 20 trucks. Well, all it's going to take is one truck on an icy morning to totally endanger and maybe kill people and animals and pollute the area for years to come. We don't need more trucks, and we don't need them at 4:30 in the morning. I also love hearing the birds in the morning. I don't want to hear trucks. And I think we do need transparency. What exactly is so crucial and vital that's being transported? We need to know what that is. Is it just the latest beach towels that people want? I mean, you know, we're at a time of global warming and COVID, and we need less. We need to really step up and stop the capitalism and really take care of the earth and the people. And, you know, they say that and air pollution and noise pollution are real things. The air pollution, people who live in polluted areas, they get COVID. That's why people in New York City got so much COVID. And noise pollution adds to a lot of stress. So I agree with everything that's been said already. And I work at the French Bakery and have to go down a steep driveway every morning at 4:30 in the morning. And God forbid I slip and smash into one of those trucks. And then I go down to the corner by the Main Street, and it's just so scary the way they whip around that corner. It's very, very scary and dangerous. And I really hope you come up with a creative solution and use New Bedford or use other boats. There's plenty of boats. Why don't we all pitch in and help transport what is so vital at another time of day? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, Melinda, I see your hand is raised again, but you've already spoken, but there's no one else out there. So go ahead, Sean, since she's the only one with the raised hand that I see. And now Nat Tremble is next after Melinda.
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Thanks very much for allowing me one more thought. And that is one, I think we found something that we can commonly share concern for, and that is the behavior of trucks. I remember the last time we had hearings like this, there were the same issues rising of trucks speeding, of trucks using their air brakes, of trucks downshifting, and it was a key point that people were making. And I believe at the time there was a response that there would be an effort made both in enforcement and in reining in the trucks' behavior on the Woods Hole Road. And I know, like a lot of enforcement efforts, it needs to persist over time in order to be effective. And the second point I want to make is I don't want to leave this audience with the impression that the island is unwilling to think about any other alternatives. We have had 2 studies about freight traffic coming from New Bedford. And we are also have been in constant discussions with Mr. Packer about how he might be able to help the Steamship Authority eliminate freight from their boats. The inquiries about freight from New Bedford, both of them, have come back saying that the cost would be considerably more than the cost that we're bearing right now. And it all pans out in the cost of living over here. If we can find, I'm sure we'll be happy to investigate other alternatives. But I didn't want the impression to be left that we're not going to even consider that. If it becomes more affordable, doesn't have to be, you know, just real cheap, like the gentleman implied. But we would be open to alternatives. These have been studied in the past. They have not yet won the contest for the best possible solution. Thanks.
Thank you, Melinda. All right, Nat, I see your hand raised. We do not hear you yet, Nat. We do not hear you, and I'll let you know when we do. I see you, but I don't hear you yet. Who knew that you were somewhere south? But we still don't hear you.
Oh, okay, how's that?
All right.
Well, thanks everyone for your time this afternoon, and I've prepared a set of comments that I'd like to read as quickly as possible and ask for your patience as I work my way through it. One of my goals is to try to correct what I find are either inaccurate or incorrect talking points that we've heard for years false narratives that we hear again and again from the Steamship Authority. And there are three topics I'd like to talk about: a short history of the 530 freight as it began in 2012. I'd like to talk about the economics and the environmental considerations of a mainland port such as New Bedford as a potential supplemental freight port. No one's asking for all freight to move to New Bedford. And the third concerns our petition. About the 530 freight truck scheduling. I think as John Woodwell pointed out, this 530 boat has not been with us forever. In fact, it only began in 2012. And there was a lot of concern among steamship leadership when it began about what its impacts would be. Mr. Hanover at the time cautioned, and I'm reading from the October 2011 Steamship Board meeting minutes, cautioned that there should not be any excessive noise in either Woods Hole or Vineyard Haven, observing that if the authorities' operations begin to cause problems at that time of the morning, the early trips may have to be discontinued. And at the same time, the Falmouth Port Council member voted against the rollout of a 530 freight scheduling from Woods Hole. In other words, Steamship Authority leaders understood from the beginning that such early morning freight had the potential to wake up hundreds of Falmouth households on a daily basis, which by all accounts is exactly what's been happening. I'd also like to point out the first 3 years, in violation of Section 15A of the Enabling Act, the Steamship Authority ran no public announcements about the introduction of that 530 freight ferry, nor was it listed on the Steamship Authority's published schedule. The steamship from the beginning didn't notify, much less consult with Falmouth residents about its new schedule. While the steamship has made some minor changes in recent years to the length of the trucks allowed on the 530 ferry, trucks of up to 40 feet are still allowed on that freight boat, and I think only 2 or 3 trucks probably had to go on later boats as a result of that change. Falmouth residents still face trucks racing through residentially zoned neighborhoods for the 530 boat for more than 6 months of the year. It's a very long summer in terms of the 530 scheduling. This has meant heavy trucks in parts of Falmouth, as I said, that are residentially zoned, and I'd like to return to that topic a little later. If you have any doubt about what this looks like, please visit, and I might point this out in particular to our board members, the website woodshole.net, where there's photographic and video evidence of what exactly is going on in Woods Hole before 5:30 in the morning. And because this is our 4th hearing, if I'm not mistaken, I would encourage board members to go back and look at the dozens and dozens of submitted written comments in the past on this very topic. Don't restrict yourself to this hearing, because others have addressed this and the problem has not gone away. This has included a petition from more than 229 residents in July 27, and our selectmen have weighed in, as did Representative Fernandez, related to noise pollution. Well, the steamship's refrain in response is that truck demand to the vineyard is up, and this is true. It's up at a rate of about 4% a year, doubling every 18 years. A few vineyard leaders have pointed out that the Woods Hole's own traffic is also up, and this is true. I've looked at the annual traffic counts run by the Cape Cod Commission for Class 5 vehicles on Woods Hole Road, and I've compared those numbers of trucks and buses going by on Woods Hole Road with the numbers sent over to the vineyard on the same days. And the figures show that 2/3, no less than 2/3 of the trucks and buses on Woods Hole Road, and if you think about the heaviest trucks, it would be a higher percentage, are going to and from the vineyard. And one other note that seems to go unnoticed is that the steamship did in 2018 add 3 brand new round trip freight trips later in the day. And ironically, those trips were added in response to one of our earlier public hearings about the 530 ferry. What Falmouth got was a continuation of the 530 freight boat. The vineyard got 3 new round trip freight runs, which maybe seems like a positive for them, but this seemed quite uneven, and one would have thought 530 freight could have gone one of those brand new later trips. Well, a few comments about the failure, in my view, of the steamship to take steps, as the petition has asked, to convene a long-term vineyard transportation task force as promised. This was a commitment that came with the decision last fall, last October, and we expected the steamship to implement it. And COVID has intervened beginning during the second half of March, but time has gone by. The steamship committed, the board members unanimously supported this decision for a task force to be created, and the appearance is that the vineyard has not stepped up. Falmouth has appointed its representatives to that task force, but the task force has not been convened yet and is not functioning. Wanted to mention the nature of the goods. This came up earlier in regard to the 5:30 a.m. Urgency, and I'd especially like to point out that the vast majority of vineyard goods, from what we can see, and we get a good look at it on the trucks going by, are not time-sensitive goods, whether it's gravel, stones, bark mulch. We got a good look at a 100-ton delivery the other day as the driver toured Woods Hole Village in search of the entry to the steamship terminal. Non-time sensitive construction and demolition materials seem to be a large volume of what's coming off on and off the island. Trash, recyclables. The Steamship Authority sends it all through Woods Hole. So about New Bedford, we've heard forever that it's more expensive, and this is untenable for vineyard residents. Well, I would ask you to compare this with the cost of what it costs for vehicles, diesel trucks, the 8 or 10 diesel trucks that might easily go on a barge or vessel in New Bedford to go up to Bourne, Wareham, Bourne, come down those 39 miles from New Bedford to Woods Hole, and then only then get on a ferry, and at considerable expense, at a very fast speed, or the reasonably fast speed with passengers, then make their way to the vineyard. Compare that with the cost of a simply waterborne route from New Bedford. There are so many externalities, it's hard to know where to begin in terms of being woken up. Diesel soot, overall congestion that these trucks contribute as they come on the Cape. By some estimates, 70 to 80% of the trucks coming to the vineyard through Woods Hole have just passed by New Bedford an hour or less earlier. About price, I would urge the board members to look at the Martha's Vineyard Commission's Regional Transportation Plan 2020-2040. It cites the finding that prices in the vineyard are really not as dependent on freight rates as vineyard residents consider them. The plan's finding, and again, please take a look at this, the Martha's Vineyard Commission seems to have an objective, no reason not to be objective here, is that only 1 to 2% of the final cost of goods in the vineyard depends on the last leg delivery to the vineyard that the steamship is conducting, and that could be run out of New Bedford. It may seem counterintuitive, but just think about the tens of thousands of dollars on a single truck. Even if that cost were to be a little higher for New Bedford, it would have almost no impact on the final cost of goods on the vineyard. And we maintain that a freight trip by barge would be actually less expensive. Again, the notion of going slowly to and using less fuel for those non-time sensitive goods. Also, I've made this point before, the vineyard might be thinking about where goods are being sourced from and the wider market sourcing that might be available from New Bedford. From an environmental perspective, and we've looked at this quite closely, in fact, the Martha's Vineyard Regional Transportation Plan includes a small paper on this. The fuel used by 8 or 10 or 12 trucks making their way past New Bedford up to Wareham through Bourne over the bridges without congestion. Take that fuel, take the wear and tear, take all the diesel soot, add in the trip to the vineyard from Woods Hole, the summation, the environmental cost, the fuel use, the carbon footprint is larger on that that longer route of going up toward Wareham and down through Bourne and so on. A direct water-borne route actually has a smaller environmental footprint. What about the experiment 20 years ago that we've heard so much about for so long? We have spoken with drivers who were on that route. We've spoken with crew who were part of that 2-summer experiment. And the conclusion I've drawn is that operation was largely mismanaged. The reservations were hard to get. There was confusion about whether one was on the Woods Hole route, whether one was on the New Bedford route. The timing was less than ideal in terms of trucks would be left in the vineyard and couldn't return easily. Certainly there must be some refinements that could be made. Yes, the steamship lost money on this route, but our understanding is the third-party operator who conducted it actually made money. In short, the steamship didn't do well with the contract, and I believe it was John Woodwell pointed out that that third-party operator came back the third year and wanted to operate the route. The steamship told him at that time that the steamship would do it itself, that the third-party operator didn't have enough capital, but certainly there was a will. There seemed to be a way forward to that operator. It's really a shame. The steamship's been unwilling to provide and publicize a formal request for proposals for freight to the vineyard from New Bedford. This smacks of protectionism. And we've heard the argument, without dominating the market, the steamship will never survive through the winter months. Well, this seems to be quite antiquated argument, and there really should be room for a free market, at least for some part of the for some part of the freight traffic. And then, and this seems obvious, wouldn't vineyarders be interested in shifting some freight to a mainland port? This provides redundancy. I remember a couple of instances in the last year or two of fuel supplies running short due to problems in Woods Hole. Wouldn't a New Bedford, a second port, have been useful? You know, the vineyard probably doesn't want more cars, although I know one hears that they can't get reservations. Aren't those trucks from Woods Hole taking up valuable car spaces on the ferries between Woods Hole and the islands? And finally, wouldn't there be some number of drivers who'd be quite interested in taking a car from directly to New Bedford for points south to and from the vineyard? And then my third and last set of points concerns the petition. And I know the board needs to be, undoubtedly is focused on the steamship's bottom line this year. But I would ask the board to consider that insistence on a 5:30 a.m. freight scheduling is not a way to save money. You made delivery to the vineyard work without a 5:30 a.m. freight boat up until 8 years ago. Since then, as I mentioned, you've added 3 additional new round trip freight trips in the afternoon. And not listening to, alienating, demonstrating to Falmouth residents just how disenfranchised we are about steamship authority decision-making impacts us directly and is just not a way forward. And I might just point out that this has been a chaotic early, late spring, early summer, but if nothing else, this has shown that steamship actually can be quite adept at changing its schedule when needed. It's done this in recent weeks, and it shows that there are ways to do this. Thinking towards summer 2021, by all reports, demand will continue to be soft, and it's particularly offensive to see the steamships insisting on keeping a longer than 6 month or just about 6 month schedule for summer 2021. Again, such a long summer, almost essentially 6 months for its 5:30 a.m. freight boats from mid-May right through the end of October. Thinking about September and October, are vineyard roads really so congested during the second half of September and all of October that you need 5:30 a.m. freight deliveries? Something's wrong here. And need I remind you that this is when our children are supposed to be back in school and families appreciate a full night's sleep. So as you've heard, we're requesting specifically that the steamship postpone until a later date to approve its 5:30 a.m. freight scheduling for summer 2021. We don't understand the rush. I'd note that summer schedules in past years have traditionally not been approved until August or September of the preceding year. Under circumstances of the many unknowns concerning demand for 2021, postponing seems the only reasonable approach to take, rather than and I weigh these words, but others have used it, a scorched earth approach to early morning freight scheduling from Woods Hole. Alternatively, and I remember one very basic, simple comment at one of our first hearings, couldn't the steamship simply wait a half hour to start your freight operations out of Woods Hole? Your noise, the truck noise, is bothering hundreds of households. Falmouth residents have already made compromises. We originally asked for the freight boat to begin only at 6:30 out of Woods Hole. We've settled with the 6 a.m. boat. Can't the Steamship Authority make any meaningful compromises? When will the Steamship Authority stop doing what it wishes in the name of financial gain? In conclusion, I find the Steamship Authority's response to so many of our concerns and over such a long period to be unethical. There are other solutions for bringing non-time sensitive freight to the vineyard. That freight can't be carried later in the day from Woods Hole. Unlike Barnstable, which has an agreement with the steamship for a maximum number of boat trips permitted daily, Falmouth currently has no agreement with the Steamship Authority. One of the initiatives we'll be pursuing in Falmouth is a citizens petition article on our town meeting ballot with the goal of placing limits on the Steamship Authority's growth in Falmouth. Again, Barnstable will be the precedent for us. As one possible point of leverage, I'd like to point out that the state highway does not extend jurisdictionally all the way to 1 Caldry Road in Woods Hole from the Bourne Bridge. There are at least 2 sections of the Falmouth route on the way to the Woods Hole terminal that belong fully to the town of Falmouth and over which Falmouth has say. Our goal would be for Falmouth to take back those road sections under its own rules, noise ordinance, and so on. The Steamship Authority's insistence on the 5:30 a.m. boat only motivates us stronger to pursue changes to the Enabling Act. The push for change to the Enabling Act appears also be gaining ground in the vineyard, as the steamship for too long has flooded the vineyard with autos and run roughshod over many of the vineyard's own environmental interests and sensitivities. I won't speak further for the vineyarders. At the same time, I would ask the steamship not to frame its response to our request today only within the context of COVID-19, that this is late because of the pandemic. That's unacceptable to us. The Enabling Act's been changed before. It'll be changed again. Falmouth residents will be heard. One phrase in Section 6 of the current Enabling Act should be kept. And it goes, the exercise of the powers granted by this act will be in all respects for the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth, for the increase of their commerce and prosperity, and for the improvement of their health and living conditions. So I believe it's time for the Steamship Authority to live up to at least this part of its charter. It is our Commonwealth too. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Nat. And I acknowledge that if we were in a live auditorium in the Falmouth Public High School, that there would be a sustained round of applause for your comments. I see John Woodwell. We allowed Melinda to go, so we'll allow John to talk again. John, we cannot hear you yet.
How about now?
Yes.
Very good. Let's see. There we go. Okay, there's been comments from, I believe, the select woman from Tisbury, possibly from the Dukes County Commissioners, and also from the Steamship Authority about the costs, keeping costs down. I have some reading that everybody needs to read. This is the for the Board of Trustees, sorry, for the Board of the Steamship Authority and for all the select people and for the Commissioners of Dukes County. When we speak of costs, we should speak of all costs, including the costs that are exported to, say, the people of Woods Hole, as Bucky Trumbull noted, sorry, Nat Trumbull noted, to the environment, to all people around us, to taxpayers, and so on and so forth. So the reading for next time is Garrett Hardin, 1968, The Tragedy of the Commons. Also, please read his subsequent comment on the tragedy of the commons. He speaks, among other things, of cars. And so we're not looking for the general argument about population. We're looking for the general principle that he applies broadly in that most cited of scientific papers, which applies directly to the Steamship Authority operations and its propensity to push costs onto other people, including the people of Woods Hole and Falmouth and the people of Martha's Vineyard, by jamming that island chock full of cars. So now we will have something to talk about next time as well. Something else to talk about next time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I do not see anybody else with his or her hand raised. And so I'm going to call this hearing to a close. As I said before, we will consider all of this testimony that was given orally today, and we will also submit any written testimony that we receive before we prepare our draft report. If any of you would like to be notified of the availability of the draft report, you should email your requests to schedules, schedules, @steamshipauthority.com. And you'll be notified when that draft report is issued before it is considered by the Port Council and the board at their regular monthly meetings.
Steve, this is Sean. Just one note, if anyone has submitted a comment, you will receive a copy of the draft report, so you don't need to email in again. I will already presume that you want it by virtue of having commented.
Correct. That's great. Thank you, Sean. All right. Thank you for all for your time. We wish you well and stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.